Hi, everybody. My name's Audrey Morshan, and I'm the church supplies intern here at Concordia Publishing House. I'm filling in for Peter today as your live stream host. Today, I'll be talking to Stacy Yates, who is the communication director at Holy Trinity Lutheran Church and School in Edmond, Oklahoma. We'll be discussing her blog post, My Handy Dandy Communication Form, and why it didn't work. So, hi, Stacy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Good morning.
Good morning. All right. So, can you tell us a little bit about your job as the communication director and how you work with the church?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been here at Holy Trinity for about 3 years now, and I work closely with the ministry staff and working with them on the communication side from newsletters, the e-news, whatever it is that they're needing for our school and for our church.
All right, awesome. So, in your blog post, you talk about your communication form. Can you tell us about the form you made and why you thought it would be helpful?
When I first started, wanted to meet with other communication directors in the area. So went around to different larger churches and talked with them. And one of the churches, the communication director, had this form, a communication request form. And he told me how great it was working for them and how it helped her stay a little more organized. And that was something when they brought me on board here at Holy Trinity. They wanted us to have our communication more organized and more streamlined and also be a little more prepared and not do things just to do things. I saw this form that they had and decided that I wanted to implement it here at Holy Trinity. I tailored it to, we had boards, and I tailored it to what our communication department was capable of doing. And I felt that it would help us manage our communication and know as a staff, a ministry staff, what the needs were for our lay leaders and their communications for their ministry.
Okay, awesome. So, and what made you decide that the form that you made, that it wasn't working and it was better to do away with it?
Well, kind of how I talked a little bit in the blog was that people just weren't using it, or they just kind of, I would give it to them and they would look at me like, what is this? How do I use this? And they had more questions. It was creating more questions than it was creating kind of an easy process, which is what I was going for. And then I noticed that more people were choosing to just not fill it out, even if I was saying, okay, here, please fill this out, please do this. They just weren't doing it. And so I felt instead of giving something a year try was enough time to maybe reconsider what I was doing, and because it wasn't working because no one was using it.
Okay, so then you decided that it's better to work without a template. And from your perspective, was it easier for you, like doing like the background work, to work with the form or without it?
It kind of goes both ways. I think that having the form made it, I'm definitely a paper person. I like to have those things written down. And so having the form had that information right in front of me. But not having it, and like I talk a little bit more later on in the post, has built stronger relationships with our members and our leaders. And I have felt, and that's why I still haven't gone back to the form. I have felt that working without the form has been a lot more successful for me and our congregation at this point in
time. What do you think is the biggest reason why people were not willing to work with the form?
I don't know if it's kind of a society, like how society is moving. Everything is so quick, and they are wanting to do things now and wanting a response quickly. And so for them to fill out a form, I mean, if you read through it, I was requesting information 3 weeks in advance of when things were going to start publishing. And so I don't know if it was just they didn't feel that they had time, especially for lay leaders. I think sometimes they have to do things when they have time, and filling the form out, it just wasn't working. And so that I think that they just didn't want to do it. I don't know. I don't know the right necessarily the answer to that.
So, what was the biggest change that you noticed with the people you were working with after you got rid of the form?
I don't think it was necessarily any changes from then, as more it was changing myself and changing how I was going to do communication at Holy Trinity in terms of the requesting and communicating with other people. It was something that I had to change. I realized that they were going to continue their behavior or how they were doing it, and it wasn't necessarily wrong. And so as a church worker, I realized I needed to adapt to that and to make it work for our congregation. And so by going away with the form, that is what I realized. So it wasn't that they had it a change, it was me that needed to do that. And doing this form kind of helped me recognize that.
So it seems like you really changed from using a form to being more conversation based. In your blog, you talked about the value of connection and that people want to talk about their ideas with you. Can you tell us more about why personal connection is so valuable in a media-driven role and communication process?
Yeah, so I think the connection kind of goes two ways. One, from connecting to the connecting with me in terms of knowing my personality and knowing that our communication department or me, I care about all of our ministries, and I care about what they're doing. And by making that connection, I also felt like our lay leaders and our volunteers felt that they could come to me and express any idea that they had in communicating about what they were doing, and I was going to help walk them through it. And when I would give them the form, it was kind of like, oh, well, these are my only options. And now when I sit down and have these conversations, we're able to brainstorm. And sometimes the volunteers and the lay leaders, they bring ideas that I might not even have thought of. And I think that helps me grow in my position here at Holy Trinity. And I also think as our members are realizing the potential of our communication here at Holy Trinity and what they can do. It's not just, sending out a flyer, just putting it in the weekly bulletin insert. There's a lot of options, and by talking through that and making that connection and building that relationship has allowed, I feel, our ministry leaders to grow in leading their ministries and understanding how to communicate. So it's kind of an education as well.
Okay, so then you also mentioned that by not using the form, you're letting your ministry leaders lead. Can you talk about the significance of that?
Yeah, so I think it gives them kind of an ownership of their ministry instead of just filling out a form and saying, well, Stacy's going to do it. They're able to kind of think through the process and own how they necessarily maybe want their ministry conveyed and how it coincides with who we are as a church. And so having them own that gives them a little bit of excitement too. An example of that is our Braille ministry here at Holy Trinity. And what we did is I worked with the leader of the Braille ministry, and we did a video, and then they actually made a board for us to put information about where we've sent the Braille Bibles all over the world. And I worked with putting pictures up and different things. And by the leader of that owning it and investing the time, it made them proud as well. And it wasn't just, well, Stacy did this. It was that ministry and as a whole, by owning it, really was able to do that.
Awesome. Okay, so do you have any suggestions for others who are working in a communication role who are deciding if maybe they should move to using a form or not? Like, any ideas for them?
Yeah, so I would say test it out. I think in communication, it's always kind of a trial and error sometimes, and you learn. I'm one to attest to that. I mean, I put a lot of work and time into this form, and I went to a lot of meetings. I tried to make it as accessible as possible. And so by putting this form out there, like I said, I invested a lot of time, but then I had to step back and realize that it wasn't working and I needed to step back. And I think it's okay to know maybe it didn't work and to not do it anymore. And I also think there's certain areas that a form or a process is necessary and where sometimes it's not. And by evaluating that, maybe through a trial and error like I did, can help you get to the point to know what you can continue to do in the future.
That sounds like some really good advice. Well, thank you, Stacy, for taking the time to talk to us this week. We really appreciate it. And I really appreciated reading your blog post and having this conversation with you today. So next week, we're going to be joined by Daniel Ross, and we'll be talking about the internal audience segmentation. So thank you for viewing with us today, and we'll see you all at 11:30 next week.